So the next category in the budget has been long-term debt, which would be defined by me as bonds and bond anticipation notes. Bond anticipation notes are 5-year notes, and bonds, of course, are 20 and 30-year notes. And the long-term debt has gone up by $72,000 a year in the 6 years I've been a trustee. Those items that go into the long-term debt are new fire trucks, new sanitation vehicles, the chief's cars, the repair of the bulkhead down at the beach that cost $350,000. That was totally unexpected. The bulkhead down by the beach was damaged in a storm about 5 years ago, and in emergency we had to get that repaired. The DPW building that had to be renovated and expanded, that cost us $1 million. That was put into a 30-year bond. So that long-term debt has gone up $72,000 a year. It will be at that level for another 5 years, in which case it will start coming down again as some of these bonds and bond anticipation notes get paid off. And then the last two, which are always my favorites, DPW administration. The DPW administration, DPW meaning Department of Public Works, the administration costs have gone up $116,000. And where does that come from? When I first started in 2003, we had one person running the Department of Public Works. He was making $62,000 a year. When that person decided to retire a year or two later, we replaced him with someone, an individual who was still there, and he got paid in the same ballpark, perhaps a little bit more, and we had a village mechanic that was supposed to be working 20 hours a week. For whatever reason, the person who was the village mechanic got elevated as a co-manager of the Department of Public Works, and now we have two individuals, each who make about $80,000, and so we've had that increase of $116,000 in our costs in the DPW administration. I would advocate that we go back to having one professional manager in the Department of Public Works. That person should have a degree of some sort, and he should be paid a fair compensation. That would depend on his level of education and his skill level. My guess it's someplace between $80,000 and $100,000 a year instead of the almost $200,000 a year that we have in costs now. And then the last item is our legal costs. I'm sure everyone is aware that we had a major lawsuit that was filed against the village. It took us 5 years to defend it. It cost a tremendous amount of money. And some of the members on the board got a little bit frightened that it made us vulnerable to other lawsuits. Jonathan and I took a different tack on this. We felt that by fighting it the way that we fought it, it made it less likely that people would sue us. But the more important thing is, for many, many, many years, we had one village attorney doing all of our legal work. That person in 2003 had a budget line of $102,000. That person retired, and he was replaced by a prosecutor who now works in the village court, a second specialist from a firm that we are paying $250 an hour to for the zoning and planning boards, and then a third person who we pay $250 an hour also works for a firm who represents the village board as an attorney. And in fact, just recently, in the last month or two, the village attorney has been recombined so that it's one individual who does advises the board and the same individual who does the planning and zoning. So essentially, we replaced Dick Siegel, who made $102,000, with Brian Stoller and his firm at $250 an hour, so that our legal costs have gone up $262,000 a year by taking it that way. That does not include the cost of defending lawsuits. That is outside the budget. The insurance company covered most of that. It did cost the village about $300,000, but the vast majority of that cost was covered by the insurance company. They paid about $1.3 million to defend the village. So all those 5 things that I just mentioned, refuse collection, roads, long-term debt, DPW administration, and legal costs, were an increase in the 6 years of $775,000. Some of those we can control, and some of them we can't. We can't control the garbage collection, but I would certainly like to see an alteration in the way that we handle DPW or manage DPW, and an alteration in the way that we do our legal costs. I'd love to be able to hire the fellow that works for that firm and bring him in as an in-house attorney for us, pay him a reasonable salary, and have him come to work. But I know that that's unlikely, so I have another candidate in mind who's a zoning and planning specialist who would be able to help us. I've fought with the rest of the board and often lost probably 50 or 60 times in my 6 years. I've lost spending votes 4-1. I was always the one who asked the question, where's the money coming from before we spent it? I never was one to say, well, let's just go and do it and then we'll figure out where the money's going to come from. I want to know where the money's coming from first.